Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. The Nifty drops to a three-week low as selling pressure continues. The Sensex ends over 500 points, lower as financial stocks drag. The Rupee closes in on 85 to the dollar as it weakens to a new record low.
3, 2, and 1!
Three companies make a blockbuster debut on the Lal Street. Vishal, Mart, Mobikwik, Sai Life Sciences all gain between 40 to 90% from their IPO price on trading debut. Mobikwik nearly doubled from its IPO price, becoming the sixth best listing of the year. The three companies together have a market cap of 70,000 crore rupees. Vehicle registrations slide 19% year-on-year in the first half of December as per data available on the government's Vahan portal. Two-wheelers with a 24% slump in registrations are the worst hit. Electric and CNG categories provide some silver lining. Two of Japan's biggest car makers and long-time rivals, Honda and Nissan, explore a merger. Talks are underway over a potential deal. Both companies are struggling with the shift to electric vehicles, and a bigger entity can compete with larger rivals. The government considers steel industry's request to raise import duty to as much as 25%. Sources say the Director General of Trade Remedies is yet to draw up a plan for the Finance Ministry's approval, but assure that interests of steel producers and consumers will be balanced. Supreme Court settles a 15-year-old dispute. Rules that coconut oil sold in small packages will be classified as edible oil and subjected to 5% GST. Gives relief to coconut hair oil sellers like Marico and Bajaj Consumer. The Excise Department was batting for coconut oil in small packages to be classified as hair oil, which attracts an 18% GST. Russia claims to have arrested an Uzbek national suspected to be involved in the killing of a top general in Moscow yesterday. Russia alleges Ukrainian security forces recruited the 29-year-old to carry out the bomb attack. Uproar in Parliament as opposition protests. Home Minister Amit Shah's remarks on Ambedkar. Prime Minister Modi hits back, accusing the Congress party of disrespecting Ambedkar. Indian spinner Ravichandra Ashwin retires from international cricket with immediate effect after the third test against Australia ends in a draw. With 537 test wickets, Ashwin is India's second highest wicket taker after Anil Kumble. Well, straight to today's market action. The Lal Street extended its losses with the Nifty ending at a three-week low. However, it did manage to hold on to levels above Friday's low of 24,181. So 137 points low on the Nifty. The Sensex down by 500 points. The mid-caps also down today, down by about 400 odd points. And the Nifty Bank lost 700 points, down by about 1.3%. So clearly across the board pressure coming in. Prashant standing by with the day's trading action. Prashant continues to be weak as far as our markets go.
Well, down and down we go. That's been the story actually pretty much all of this week, and no different this Wednesday as well. I mean, you know, the silver lining initially when the market started coming off on the Nifty was that the broader market was still looking good. But that I think also turned yesterday, and I think today was a repeat of what we saw in trade yesterday. The Nifty ending 0.5% lower. Banks much larger pressure, about 1.25% cut on the Nifty Bank. The small cap index losing just under 1%. The mid cap index down about 0.6. The change all come up on your screens. Market breadth was one way. About 2:1 declines outnumber advances. I'll get to stocks there in the broader space in a bit. But let me just start with the Nifty. Here, the large cuts came through in names like Tata Motors, which was down 3%. Power Grid was down 2.5%. JSW Steel lost about 2%. And names like BEL and NTPC were in the 2% sort of loss vicinity. So these are sort of pressure points here. On the upside on the Nifty, Trent stood out with about a 2.5% gain. Dr. Reddy's 2.5% there. And there was a Cipla. Actually, only three names in the Nifty pack ended with gains of over 1%. So it was pretty thin and slim pickings, really. In the broader space, I'll start with what was down. So Viatech Vabag, there was that tender cancellation, 11% cut there. And the biggest volume-led loser today. NMDC, there was sort of negative. Source-based news flow, but 6% damage on NMDC. PVR Inox was down 6%. Deepak Fertilizer, Piramal Enterprises. There was Sanghi Industries, Bayer Crop Sciences. Some of the biggest volume-led gainers, losers really in this particular pack. On the upside, actually, there were names, numerically, of course, much shorter list here, but Bharti Hexacom was a big gainer, 6% gain, number one volume-led gainer across the board. Mankind Pharma, you don't see these stocks very, very much on the top volume board, but they were there today. EID Parry 5%, K Fintech another 6%. There was Bajaj Care, which was up about 20%. Cosmo First has been recovering. It's finally in the 4 digits now. Gravita India was up from the morning, 7% gain. And a Craftsman Auto ended about 12% higher as well. There were many more and decent-sized volumes. And I think this is a point I made yesterday as well. It's down and out and pretty much it's everywhere. But if you just run through the big volume-led movers, it still favors what was up and what was and not what was really down and out today. The big macro point, talking point, of course, is going to be the Fed decision. A 25 basis point cut in the price. Lately, US data has been strong and some nerves out there that maybe the Fed may gently guide the market away from future cuts, that is in 2025. Back to you.
Prashant, many thanks. Now, staying with the markets, the Board of Market Regulators, SEBI, meets today to discuss tightening the listing regulations for small businesses, SMEs essentially. A review of some insider trading regulations also on the agenda. SEBI is considering enhancing transparency and investor protection in the SME listings. It could potentially double or even quadruple the minimum application size, which currently stands at 1 lakh rupees. There is also a slew of other changes on the agenda to tighten the listing rules. SEBI is also considering expanding the definition of unpublished price-sensitive information to crack down on insider trading. The regulator could force companies to mandatorily disclose any change in ratings, change in key management personnel, fundraise, fraud, default, among other parameters. Now, the U.S. Federal Reserve's rate-setting committee will announce its policy decision later tonight. The street expects the Fed to lower borrowing costs by 25 basis points, delivering a hat-trick of rate cuts. However, the market will be keeping a close watch on Fed's commentary on the frequency of future rate cuts. This would be the last Fed policy decision before Donald Trump is sworn in as the president next month. Now let's talk about the rupee. It has declined further against the dollar, hitting another record low today. Now the rupee is just 5 paise short of the 85 mark against the greenback. Meanwhile, bond prices also declining in trade today ahead of the U.S. decision. So that's the money market snapshot for you. Lata standing by now with more on the rupee, where it's headed and the implications for the larger economy. Lata.
Yes, slipped 5 pies from 84.90, where it closed on Tuesday, to 84.95.96. Of course, relentless buying of dollars by FPIs who are selling shares and repatriating the money back. Actually, the flow, according to dealers, was perhaps even more yesterday. But yesterday, the RBI allowed the rupee to go up to 84.94 and then made it end at 84.90. So today, till the end at 3:30, it was a guessing game. Will they pull it back? But no, they allowed it to end at 84.95.96. But really, left to itself, it would have crossed the 85 mark quite a few days back. The Reserve Bank has been intervening heavily. The sentiment on the rupee has also worsened because of the higher than expected trade deficit that we got for the month of November. Goods deficit alone is, unexpected, an all-time high of nearly $38 billion. And if you add the services surplus, it is still a massive $20 billion of monthly deficit. That gives the feeling that, this won't go away. Of course, there's a one-off big gold purchase. It may be one-off. It may be something which, investors are going to regularly do because of asset allocation, asset diversification. But if the deficit were to be, continue to remain high, then there is going to be further pressure on the rupee. So that has also hurt sentiment. That could explain why the Reserve Bank let go. The other big event, of course, the FOMC event. And if they were to signal fewer rate hikes next year, that will mean further strengthening of the dollar, and that can have impact on the rupee. Most people are expecting 85, tomorrow. It should have come a few days back. It's expected round the corner, and probably 85.50 by the time we get to next quarter.
All right, Lata, many thanks. That's the action as far as the rupee is concerned. But let's talk about that big headline coming in on gold imports. There's been a big surge in gold imports in November, which pushed India's overall imports and trade deficit to a record high. In fact, gold prices actually fell on a monthly basis in November, which means that the increase in imports was due to higher volumes. Manisha is standing by now with more on the yellow fever. Manisha, this is fast likely to become a problem for the government, is it not?
Well, it really could with the kind of numbers that we are working with, the record imports for the month of November. Also, when you look at the current financial year from April to November, it has been a 49% of a jump as compared to previous year. So, well, yes, there's a problem with trade deficit and that also has impacted Indian rupee and that would make imports costlier going forward. So, it really seems to be turning into a cycle here. But I want to take you through on what really we do in sense of November when it comes to imports. And, well, yes, it is a record. When you look at all of those previous years, it has been a double-digit tons in sense of gold import, but for the month of November in 2024, we've seen 173 tons, and this is the Ministry of Commerce data there. I also want to take you through last many years on the kind of imports that we've done. Let me remind you that 2020 was a COVID year, is the reason you're looking at a smaller number. 21 was a vengeance buying, and then the 2 years after that, we've seen in the tune of 700s there, and this year 800 ton plus kind of imports is what we are looking at. I also want to take you through on the reasons why we've seen such strong gold imports. Well, one, it is festival season. Always the last quarter of calendar year does see higher imports. And then also there are 48 lakh weddings this time around until mid of Jan. That import seems to be happening. There's strong investment demand also. Remember, gold has given you 30% of returns in this year itself. So portfolio diversification has been on the higher side. Markets also have reacted to import duty cut from 15 to 6%. And that led to a lot of buying into gold. Also, remember, a lot of unofficial and smuggled gold used to come into India to the tune of 150 to 200 tons. That also has found its way via the white channel. So those numbers also are now reflecting within this number. The other thing is about hallmark jewelry. Remember, you have many IPOs coming in. More corporates are now getting into jewelry. There's more credibility, transparency here. So that also has led to more jewelry buying into the markets there. But when you look at the overall numbers right now, there's a bit of a dissent when it comes from the industry. So while the Ministry of Commerce has put out a number at 173 tons for the month of November, Metal Focus, which is an agency which provides data and collects data from 9 countries, also is a source of data for World Gold Council, has put that number to 136. So these are the numbers that the industry still is debating on. But even with 136, we are pretty much on the higher side.
Yes, we certainly are. But of course, we need to get that number discrepancy clarified by the government as well. Manisha, many thanks for joining us. It was a day for blockbuster listings on the Lal Street. All 3 companies gained between 40 to 90% on their trading debut. Mobikwik was the star of the day. The fintech company shares listing at a 57% premium, ending the day with gains of 89%. This makes it the 6th best listing of the year. Vishal Megamart debuted at a 33% premium. It ended the day with gains of 44%. The public issue was entirely an offer for sale, was subscribed over 27 times during the bidding process. And the third company, Sai Life Sciences, listed at an 18% premium on the Lal Street. It ended the day with gains of 39%. The 3 new listings now command a market cap of 70,000 crore rupees. Well, the 3 listings today are a testament to what has been a record-breaking month for the IPO market. 15 companies raised close to 25,000 crore rupees just in December so far, with at least 6 IPOs in the pipeline still. When it comes to the number of IPOs, December has seen the highest new issuances since February of 2007, when 18 companies launched their IPOs. However, the amount raised then was far lower at 4,500 crore rupees. Well, moving from IPOs to vehicle registrations, they are down 19% in December so far, according to data available on the government's Vahan portal. 2-wheelers are the worst hit, but electric and CNG vehicles are seeing an increase in registrations. To be fair, we've also seen a change in the Diwali dates this year, which could have impacted numbers. So Ashwin is standing by now with the details. Sud.
We have analyzed Vahan data for first 2 weeks of December, and the picture that we are getting is different from the trend that we had seen as of now. As of now, one sector that was outperforming was 2-wheeler, but now Vahan data for first 2 weeks of December indicates that two-wheeler has underperformed in the registration. Overall registration from December 1 to 17 is down 19%, and in comparison, registration of 2-wheeler segment has fallen almost 25%. Now, talking about the category-wise, one segment which has done better than other segments was electric segment, where we have seen registrations increasing by almost 7%. But in comparison, petrol segment has fallen by almost 25%. UBS has also come out with a note, and it says, in December, industry retails are on track to post decline, and that would be led by Hero MotoCorp and Bajaj Auto. In comparison, TVS and Honda are likely to gain big both year-on-year and month-on-month, where Hero loses the most, and it expects industry to post 7 to 9% year-on-year decline in retails in the month of December, whereas Hero Motocorp and Bajaj Auto are seen recording a fall of almost 15%, and in comparison, TVS Motor and Bajaj Auto may see a growth. One segment, as per UBS also, which has done better is the electric vehicle. Now, after in the first 2 weeks, underperformance by two-wheeler, we'll have to see how the auto sector performs in the remaining part of December.
Sid, many thanks for joining us. And the big global story, two of Japan's biggest car makers and longtime rivals, Honda and Nissan, explore a merger. Both companies have confirmed that talks are underway over a potential deal. Nissan and Honda are struggling with the shift to electric vehicles, and they hope a bigger entity can compete with their larger rivals. Take a look.
Nissan and Honda are planning an alliance. A Reuters source says the two firms are in talks to establish a joint holding company. That would allow them to share more resources as competition heats up in the auto industry. Nissan shares surged on the news, jumping more than 20% in early trade on Wednesday. Honda didn't fare so well, however, sliding around 3%. The talks were first reported by the Nikkei newspaper. An alliance would allow two of Japan's biggest automakers to cooperate over technology as the shift to electric vehicles reshapes the industry. It wasn't immediately clear whether a full union was the ultimate plan, though the Nikkei reports that merger talks were underway. On Tuesday, the two firms released identical statements saying that no merger had been announced, but they admitted to exploring various possibilities for future collaboration. Over the past year, an EV price war launched by Tesla and Chinese rival BYD has made it harder for other firms to make money on the zero-emission vehicles. The industry has also faced stalling demand for electric cars in the US and Europe, and Japan's big exporters all now face the looming prospect of sweeping tariffs under a new Trump administration. Any deal would be the industry's biggest since the $52 billion merger of Fiat Chrysler and PSA in 2021. Honda and Nissan have already deepened ties, agreeing earlier to work together on batteries and other technology. Nissan may be more in need of a helping hand, after saying last month that half-year earnings were down over 90%. Its market capitalization is about $10 billion after Wednesday's surge, or less than a quarter of Honda's.
Well, back home shares of Vietech Warburg were down 19% in early trade after its 2,700 crore rupee desalination order from the Saudi Arabian government was cancelled. The Saudi government order was about 18.5% of the total order book of 14,600 crore rupees at the end of September 2024, the highest ever in the Chennai-based company's history. The stock recouped a third of its losses by midday close 11% lower. Despite this fall, it may still be the best year for the stock since 2014. The share price has gone up by more than threefold since the start of the year. Government-run helicopter operator Pawan Hans has received an order from ONGC to supply 4 Dhruva NG helicopters. The 4 new helicopters made by Hindustan Aeronautics will be deployed at ONGC's offshore operations. The contract is valued at over 2,000 crore rupees for a period of 10 years. Remember, ONGC owns 49% stake in Pawan Hans, while the remaining is held by the government. The government is considering steel industry's request to raise import duty to as much as 25%. Sources say the Directorate General of Trade Remedies is yet to draw up a plan for the Finance Ministry's approval, but also assure that interests of both the steel producers and consumers will be balanced. Parikshit is standing by now with details. Parikshit, we've been speaking with the steel industry, and whether it's Sajjan Jindal or Naveen Jindal and others, they have gone on record to say that there is a need to impose higher duties on Chinese imports. What's the situation at this point in time in terms of government action?
Well, there are a number of actors involved in this exercise. One is the nodal ministry, which is the steel ministry, which can make a recommendation. But when it comes to any kind of duties, finally, it will be the finance ministry which has to take a final call. And in this case, the steel industry has to first go to the Directorate General of Trade Remedies. Now, this is what sources are telling us, that the industry body, that is the steel industry body, has submitted a representation to the DGTR. The DGTR will now have to deliberate on this. This is a quasi-judicial body. They will have to seek responses from everyone involved and then make a recommendation to the finance ministry. So currently, the industry request for a 25% safeguard duty on steel imports, that is under active examination. That's what sources are telling us. But the exercise has been initiated in terms of taking a call on it, but no decision just yet. So whether we can go ahead and say that this duty is going to be imposed, that would be too premature, because the ball has just started rolling into action. The entire quasi-judicial process has to be completed before the matter goes to the Finance Ministry, and the Finance Ministry takes a final call. So as of now, no decision yet, but the government actively examining the request.
All right. Well, we'll have to wait to see whether there is likely to be an imposition of a safeguard duty ahead of the budget or perhaps even in the budget. Many thanks, Parikshit, for joining us. Speaking of metal, sources tell us that the Karnataka government may be looking at increasing the duty on iron ore. The draft to increase duty on iron ore has likely been circulated. The Karnataka government is seeking to collect over 10,000 crore rupees in iron ore duty this year. Remember, the apex court had approved that states be allowed to collect mining tax retrospectively from 2005. Shares of NMDC declined 35% of its iron ore comes from the state of Karnataka. We'll head into a break, but up next, the Supreme Court settles a 15-year-old dispute, rules that coconut oil sold in small packages will be classified as edible oil and subject to 5% GST. More when we return. Amazon.com NV Investment Holdings is likely to have sold its entire 4% stake in Shoppers Stop in a big block deal. The deal was worth around 280 crore rupees. A clutch of FIIs and DIIs were the likely sellers, but the likely buyers. The stock ended the day 1.5% higher. That's Shoppers Stop for you. Zing, a 10-minute food delivery app, has launched in Gurugram. The app is backed by marquee investors like Azhar Iqbal, the founder of InShorts and one of the judges of popular TV series Shark Tank India. It aims to redefine convenience for urban dwellers by delivering meals at their doorstep in 10 minutes. Remember, Zepto and Blinkit currently dominate the 10-minute food delivery market. They have, of course, also just gotten into the 10-minute food delivery market. The Supreme Court has settled a 15-year-old dispute on taxation of coconut oil. The court has ruled that coconut oil sold in small packages will be classified as edible oil and be subjected to 5% GST. Ashwin joins us now. Ashwin, the Supreme Court finally settling what has been a sticky issue for decades.
Well, it's an interesting dispute which stretches back 15 years if you count from the date of the Sestat verdict. Goes back even further to the 90s. The issue at hand essentially is that the coconut oil, which many users apply on their hair, is that hair oil or is that edible oil? This question seems interesting, but it's even more interesting when you look at it from a taxation perspective. The GST that is levied on hair oil is 18%. The GST levied on edible oil is 5%. That's what the genesis of the dispute is all about. This issue traveled from the Sestat all the way to the Supreme Court. We had a split verdict coming in, then we had a 3-judge bench, and today finally clarity being given by the apex court that Supreme Court's view is that it indeed, even coming in small packages, it indeed is edible oil. Now, with that classification, what the apex court has done is that it has made the FMCG makers, the likes of Marico, the likes of Godrej, who produce coconut oil and sell in small packages, they are now all eligible for a levy of 5% GST. So a huge tax relief coming in, especially as far as the industry is concerned, and a setback of sorts as far as the tax department, which has been litigating for a very long time, in finally getting an answer to that question, is coconut oil a hair oil or an edible oil? The Supreme Court having the final word, the last word, saying that in fact it is qualified as edible oil. Back to you.
All right, Ashwin, many thanks. Indeed, a very sticky issue. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. More news and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV18. But do remember to stay tuned. We've got our big CNBC TV18 town hall starting 5 p.m. where we will be speaking with the fund managers of the year on the funds that have been the outperformers of 2024. And also, we'll tell you where the smart money is headed in 2025. So stay tuned to the CNBC TV18 Town Hall. That's coming up.